When you think of cities that are centers for creativity, New York, Los Angeles, or even Austin, Texas might come to mind. But why not Des Moines? When you stop to think, Des Moines has an incredibly vibrant arts scene. From the Civic Center to the Arts Center or the Botanical Gardens, art and culture is alive and well in central Iowa. But if you're a local artisan, where do you go to find an affordable space to develop and produce your creations? That's where Mainframe Studios enters the picture. Mainframe Studios is a nonprofit organization located on Kia Way in downtown Des Moines. This space is a 36-year-old 5-story building that was originally a telephone company data center. Upon reopening in late 2017, Mainframe included 75 shareable studios on 3 of the 5 floors, now home to nearly 100 creative professionals. Through the course of this series of programs on MC22, we'll introduce you to this consortium of people that make up Mainframe Studios. Paintings, even in the best of environments, can deteriorate over time. Restoring these items is the job of an art conservator. Sarah Jo Bozen received her Bachelor's of Arts from Savannah College of Art and Design in Georgia before attending the Kurt Auld Institute of Art in London. Bozen has since worked on pieces that range in age from the 15th to 21st century.
So Mainframe Studios is a great space for artists. It's affordable, which all artists appreciate, even though I'm not an artist per se. I work with the arts and I still need that affordability. And then I'm also surrounded by artists. So if I have a question about different techniques or anything like that, I can reach out, and vice versa. If they have questions about the longevity of their artwork or a damage that happens, they can reach out to me. So it's a nice collaborative environment. So I am currently working on several different paintings from mid-1850s to mid-1900s. Most of them are oil-based and have a variety of different condition issues. Everything from just needing a simple cleaning, removing grime and dirt from the surface, to holes, significant holes, scratches. So this is a portrait of the Cook children. It's from the Jordan House Museum in West Des Moines. And it was partially funded by a historical resource grant. But it is very dirty. It not only has dirt built up, but it also has a discolored varnish, which has yellowed the overall tone of the piece. And there's also holes, nice L-shaped tear there, hole there, little tear there. Those all need to be repaired and filled. And then other cracks just need to be stabilized also to reduce the risk of paint loss. In undergrad at Savannah College of Art and Design, I had a professor who realized that I had no interest in becoming a professional artist, but I loved my painting classes, and I have great respect for history. My parents were auctioneers, and so I grew up around antiques and appreciating their value. So he introduced me to a couple of conservators at the National Gallery in DC. And through that process, I realized that treating artwork is where my passion lied. So from undergrad, I had the fine art element, and then I also had to have art history and chemistry background. So I made sure I fulfilled those requirements and then applied to grad schools, which within the US there's only a handful, and of those schools they take between 5 to 10 students a year. So I also applied in Canada and the UK, and I ended up going to a fantastic grad program in London, which was a 3 years master program in easel painting conservation. I do paint. I consider myself a hobby artist, but I do have a fine art background. And so unfortunately, this profession does take a lot of the creative juice out of me. So I'm often struggling for inspiration, I suppose. But I am trying to break back into doing my own artwork some, usually for friends and family, just fun pieces. For treating paintings, there's a variety of tools that are used. Most of them are quite small, things used by dentists and doctors. We use magnification, both like head loops and microscopes, so we can get in close and know exactly what we're doing. Our goal is to always maintain the original artwork, never damage it, never go overpaint over original. You want the original artwork to shine through and be as whole as it can be. So we use very small tools and that magnification so that we can work as small as the painting requires. Some of the other tools we use are like heated spatulas to help set down lifting paint. We do use a lot of solvents, and because of that we also will use a respirator or a fume extraction trunk, just for health and safety reasons. There's some random things we'll use, like different weights to help things relax and stay relaxed. So for me, since I come from an antique background, I have old cast iron weights I'll use for that. Repurposing things. But scalpels, tiny brushes, like the brush number we use is a 000. Most people wouldn't paint with a 000. You'd be using like a 1. And that would still be small painting. And then we also have a wide variety of pigments we often use when we are going to match the colors. You want to use as minimal number of pigments possible to make the paint you want, because if you're mixing too many, it just gets muddy and brown. So in this case, there's a puncture that goes through the painting, and it has lost enough of the canvas that I can't reweave the fibers to remake it. So I will find a similar canvas and cut it precisely to match the hole and attach the fibers of the new canvas to the old to fill in that loss. From there, I can then fill it and texture it and paint it, so it visually will blend with the rest of the painting. So that'll happen there. In places like this tear, I should be able to just realign the fibers, and essentially you're just wanting them to touch end to end. And that'll, with the adhesive and everything I use, it'll be strong enough to withstand everything, and then I'll be able to end paint the area of loss there. The whole painting will get a fresh coat of varnish that will saturate and help the background move to the background and pull the foreground forward and make it look much more like it did originally when it was painted.
Sarah mostly works on oil and acrylic, but she offers some easy precautions for protecting any medium in your art collection to ensure that it will be pristine for generations to come.
So try not to hang artwork on exterior walls. The moisture and fluctuations environment come through the walls faster than they will anywhere else in the house. And fluctuations in environment causes more damage to a painting, because your fibers of the canvas and the paint layer, they expand and contract at different rates. And the more you can minimize that, the better. For the same reason, don't hang them over air ducts or heat vents. Also try to avoid hanging them out of direct sunlight. Also, the number one reason art needs to be repaired is typically human handling. So it's a human error element. The less you move things around, the better. If you have to take something off the wall, try to put a piece of cardboard or something in front of it so that a foot doesn't accidentally go through it. Just think twice before doing things.
You can find examples of Sarah's conservator work at her website s-jfineartconservation.com. And finally, we asked her, what is her dream project?
I love old masterpieces, so working on those is just always really fun. Just because I get to get up close to the artwork in a way that people usually can't, so I see every single brush stroke and I get to know the artist better. But really, every piece is different, so there's a different challenge with everything, and that's one of the things I love about conservation.
We'll take a short break before we explore some of the iconic art and artists behind popular record covers. Our next artist began her career while still attending school at the Art Center College of Design in Los Angeles. Some of music's most iconic album covers were designed by Margot Nejas in collaboration with her husband, Jay Vigon.
It's fun being in Mainframe. As far as studios go, I think these are the most dynamic studios in the nation right now. It's a beautiful space. Everything's modern. It's state of the art as far as visions go. And Justin Mandelbaum, who built the building, had just an amazing vision for artists that work in their basements or their closets or their garages, wherever they work, and he's trying to create something that gives them freedom to not be burdened with the responsibility of coming up with like major rents. Our rents are very reasonable here, but also it's available for 24 hours a day to the artists, so you could really have time to express your visions here. We settled here because we had just arrived in Des Moines. It was the fall of 2016, and we were looking for a place to live. We had moved here because our daughter had a baby. So nobody wanted to come back to California, and we're from California, Los Angeles. And so we came here. We just ran after them. And we were looking for studios. And this, word of mouth was that they're opening up a large studio. And it's going to be filled with hundreds of artists. And it sounded perfect, and there was our studio. So we came over here, and at that time it was just raw space. We picked out our space, and here we are 3.5 years later. Well, currently I'm working on illustration again. I was an illustrator in Los Angeles for 25, 30 years, and when we moved here, and a few years before that, I was a bit burned out, and so I started doing jewelry and working in resin because I'd always loved that. And I've always worked in a number of mediums. Did ceramics, I did glass, but jewelry stuck with me. And So when I came here, I wanted a studio just for my jewelry. But then, you know, as an artist, I just wanted to move on. And I went back to sort of my comfort zone, which is doing illustration. Photorealism is you take a subject, and I was pretty much known for this in Los Angeles. You take a subject such as chrome, and you take that chrome piece and you apply that same chrome texture to, say, a graphic. And when you're finished, that graphic will look like it's all chrome. And you make something look so real that you really can't tell the difference, whether it's an illustration or if or the actual object. Well, this is an illustration that I did for Van Halen in 1984. I actually did it in 1983 for myself. It was one of the few things I had ever done, if not the only thing I had ever done within the 20 years that I was an illustrator. And it came along because one of my first jobs while I was still in college was an album cover for Warner Brothers Records. It was called Seals and Crofts, the album. And from there, I met my husband also in school, and he had this instructor who just loved our work. And my husband found out that he was an art director for a record company. And, you know, it was like, that was it. We just became illustrators. He's a graphic designer, a logo designer. So he did all the graphics, or a lot of the graphics, and I did a lot of the illustrations. But on this one right here, Warner Brothers had just called me because they wanted, going back to chrome, the band wanted 4 chrome dancing women on their album cover. So Warner Brothers called me to do it. And, you know, I couldn't think of anything as impossible as all the reflections on 4 dancing chrome women. So I declined the job. And a couple of hours later, they called my husband, Jay Vigon, and asked him if he would take over my portfolio to the band the next day so they can look at it. And as they were looking through my portfolio, they stopped on this illustration that I had done previously, about a year before, and it was for myself. Once again, a divider page for a reference book that was in Los Angeles. And they said, "Is this available?" And my husband said, "Yes, it is." And they said, "Well, we'll take it." And that was sort of the beginning of one of the most iconic pieces I've ever done. And I think one of the most iconic pieces in album cover history. For me, for airbrush, you really have to take a picture, a photograph of the actual piece that you're going to paint on a blank canvas. And with this little guy, I was asked to do a photorealistic painting, anything I wanted. And I always loved angels, and I always loved little devils, little rebels. And so what I decided to do was have an angel smoking a cigarette, which is a perfect little rebel. And I asked my girlfriend if I could use her son. This was my best friend, and his name was Carter Helm. He was 3 years old. And I took a lot of candy cigarettes over to his house. I took this dippity-doo, which is like a moose. I put his hair in a mohawk. We went outside in the backyard, and he proceeded to, you know, play with the candy cigarettes. He's 3 years old. He didn't know how to hold a cigarette, so I would just tell him, you know, just put it right there. And proceeded to eat all the candy cigarettes. But after like 2 hours, I got the perfect photograph, and I brought it home. It was on a picnic table. So I changed the picnic table into a marble table, and there was some things behind it. I took them all out, and then I put the sky in. And then, whoops, this is basically what he looked like. He didn't have the wing, believe it or not, but he was cute enough he could have. And this was it. This is how it turned out. It was just what I wanted. And it was just what Van Halen wanted also.
On a side note, the Van Halen front cover was censored at the time of the album's release. It featured a sticker that obscured the cigarette in the child's hand and the pack of cigarettes.
I've personally done 18 album covers, and I think I'm one of the few, if not the only, person, woman, girl, who has done that many illustration-wise. There's other people who do photographs, so perhaps Annie Leibovitz has done more. But I'd like to try to find 2 more to do before I retire. Artists don't retire. Do I have a goal? My goal is to just keep on painting. I've got some things in mind. But I kind of keep that to myself because there's so many people that steal ideas. But my goal, I was going to say that an artist's profession is not a 8 to 5 job. It's a 24-hour-a-day job, and that's what I love about it. I mean, you could pick up an airbrush or a brush or a pencil anytime during the day when you get an idea, or anytime during the night, and create anything you want.
In a mostly male-dominated field, Margot has found her voice. Here's the advice she has for someone trying to break into the field.
One of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten, but I got it really late in life, is to, if you don't like something, learn to embrace it. You know, look at the details, look at things in it, look at whatever it is, and really try to embrace it. And you will find yourself connecting with it a little bit more all the time, and learning, well, like teaching yourself how to make it better and better and better until it comes out the way you want. I think that's for me. You know, there's a lot of art that I had to do along the way that, you know, I had to draw tractors, I had to draw boats, ships, buildings, things that I never, ever wanted to do. And what happened was I had to really, in the process, learn how to embrace the techniques and, you know, take little steps. And by the end, you know, you realize that, yes, you can capture it, you can do it, and you can win. And so that's, I think, you know, that's how I just run my career. I love everything that's beautiful, and everything can be beautiful. It just depends on how you look at things. And so if there's something that isn't beautiful about it, I'll find something beautiful.
You can find examples of Margot's illustrations on her website, margotznejas.com. She is currently focusing her efforts on designing fine and custom jewelry and one-of-a-kind resin pieces, which can also be found on her website. Thanks for watching this premiere episode of Movement at Mainframe on MC22. In the following weeks to come, we'll be featuring more Des Moines artists and their unique talents. For more information on the artists, visit mainframe.org.